Sometimes in life, it is really necessary to let go of outmoded ways of thinking, outmoded conditioning, outmoded modalities like the energy or mode in which you are operating. This may sound really abstract, but this is why I like astrology and tarot and things like this, that a lot of people may scoff at these things. Astrology, you believe the planets influence? Actually, yes, I do believe that, but beyond that, it's an unbelievable tool to kind of break up different aspects of your psychology and examine them. I think typically, when you're thinking about your mind, you think of it as one big lump. But it's more helpful to realize that there's different aspects of yourself. There's different modes that you can get in. There's different elements to your personality. And this is something that astrology really helps you see. In fact, many psychologists nowadays who are academically trained, they know all the stuff that comes from the scientific materialism perspective, and yet they find astrology an unbelievable tool at examining these different elements of yourself. Tarot does the same thing. You have 78 cards, and each of these cards can represent different energies, different vibes, different aspects of your psychology, different moods, elements, characters. So it's important to realize this fundamentally. When you're considering your internal mechanisms, your cognitive processes, realize that it's very helpful, instead of just considering that as one big lump, my mind, as a one entity, me, realize that you're made up of a kaleidoscope of different types of energies. You may act one way in one situation, you may act another way in a different situation. At a certain time of day, you may be operating with a certain type of vibe, and another day you're acting like another type of vibe. So I love the way the planets represent these things. You have your Mars aspect. Go and study what that means. The Mars, what Mars represents, what Venus represents, what Mercury represents. These can be seen as different aspects of your own internal psychology. This is a thought I had, though, is that in certain times in life, depending on what you're trying to achieve or what is going on in your life, or the direction you feel that it's time to go in, rather than just looking at what needs to be done and pushing towards that destination, realize that it's also going to involve a letting go of certain, it can be many things, certain patterns, just behavioral patterns, cognitive patterns, beliefs, especially beliefs. We're talking about conditioning. We're talking about ways of thinking about the world and aspects of the world, whatever the subject may be. But what tends to happen is you build up beliefs about whatever that subject may be, and we call this conditioning. It becomes layered. You learn many things from many different trial and errors or situations. You tend to make some kind of binary conclusion, and then that becomes a belief. And at a certain point, once you repeat that thinking, that belief becomes unconscious. You've already developed layers above that belief and are operating around there, and the stuff that's buried deep is just kind of given. It's just kind of given at this point to you. Consider that all of it may be erroneous. that you have these unconscious beliefs that you just assume are given, and you're operating with that. But what if it's erroneous? Things change. Time changes. Society changes. Physical reality tends to change. In fact, that's what it is. That's what it's doing all the time. That's what time is. It's change. You can't measure time unless a change occurs. So that's what this physical reality is. Everything is morphing and changing all the time. So it's helpful if you can realize that your mind needs to do that now. And we can see this with age, how there's a tendency for many people as they age to become more set in their ways, more kind of crotchety, like grumpy, more rigid in their beliefs, unable to like adapt, unable to assimilate new ideas and new information and new skills and new things like this. It's because of layered conditioning, conversely, to a child, everything is possible. They think the world is an open simulator to them. Everything is still possible. They're soaking up everything they can. The condition hasn't started to be layered yet. So just to give you a specific example, 2 specific examples. It was a new moon recently, new moon in Capricorn. And I always like to journal a little bit and take a day or 2, sometimes even 3 at night, and really kind of take stock, process, see what comes up about what I'm feeling and the symbolism. What does this moment signify? What is the universe trying to tell me right now? Where am I pointed to? What is coming up for me? Anyway, this is my process. I like to do this every 2 weeks on full moons and new moons. And I had done that, and this was a particularly non-fruitful full moon. Usually it's very evident that stuff wants to come up, and things have happened, and it feels really good to just let it flow out and process that. But I was feeling stuck. Nothing was really coming up beyond the like obvious superficial stuff, and all. I like to watch videos about these new moons and stuff, and they all kind of said the same thing, and nothing was really coming up. And so I had done a little bit of writing, and I was just kind of sitting around, and I have 2 tarot decks, and I just started kind of shuffling around, and I said, what do I need to know about this new moon? What is the main energy that's trying to come through? What do I need to know? What do I need to change? And the first couple of cards I got were extremely significant. Out of those 78 cards, the first 2 or 3 cards that popped out could not be more significant about the moment and the symbolism. And I don't need to go into that, but this is where I had the idea. I got a lot of reversed cards, which were cards that I frequently have been getting for many months. Cards that frequently pop up in the upright position. And these cards tend to pop up when, I'll do a reading where my relationship situation is kind of heightened and intense, and there's maybe some conflict, and I'll do a reading. And cards like the Queen of Swords were popping up a lot. And I always would interpret it as, okay, I'm embodying Queen of Swords energy, with this incisive mind, telling it like it is, chopping off people's heads, that she's frequently symbolized like that. It's a very cold, hard, objective, this is how it is, and I'm going to slice you. That's the Queen of Swords. And I could see that in myself, that I was being that way. And I was getting that card quite frequently, as well as several other cards. But my point is, in this reading that I did, already feeling that this is some type of new era. The cycle is complete. I feel like I'm moving into a new era, at this time, stuff feels different. It just feels different. It feels like a different world. I already know that. And that's the second card I got, was the Aeon, saying that this is a new era. The first card I got was the Queen of Discs, which is Capricorn. That's the Capricorn card. Very symbolic. But my point is I got 3 reversed cards in a row, which are cards that I get very frequently in the upright position. And bam, that's when the light went off in my head, and I had the idea that I need to let go of these energies for a while. I've been embodying these kind of modalities and ways of behaving, ways of thinking, and what it's telling me is, because of the task at hand and the fact that it is a new era, it's going to be beneficial to let go of certain energies and ways of thinking and being, and instead embody different ones, new ones. And this is my point in this video, that it broadened my thought to, that's really a thing. That's an element of change. That's an element of achievement. If you want to change your situation, if you're stuck in a cycle and you can't seem to make a lot of headway, you're sick of where you're at, it's obvious that action will need to be taken in the external world. You'll have to work, you'll have to go out and do stuff, you'll have to make stuff happen. But also, it's pretty evident that you have to change on the inside. You have to change fundamentally kind of who you are, how you've been, your behavior patterns. And behavior comes from thought and also emotion. It's all tied together. You have to change your thought patterns. So that's not just embodying new energy, it's realizing that there's specific modalities, there's specific modes that need to be let go of in order to change. It isn't just trying to stack new stuff on top of your old conditioning. There's stuff that has to be let go of. That means stop activating it. Notice when you're doing it, and easily just let it go slip. Try to deactivate, take the momentum away. And like many research is showing now, that's your neurons, your neurological pathways in your brain are actually physically changing when you do that. When you either de-emphasize certain things, like you start to behave in a way that you habitually do, if you interrupt that instead right then do something different, the connections, your neurological connections in your brains actually change. It's like a switch. You're physically changing your brain, you're physically changing yourself, and this is something that's happening all the time. Another example is I watched a documentary last night on Netflix called Hired Gun, and it is very personal because that's my main trade as a musician, and this is something I've been doing for 15 or 20 years, and most frequently that's what I'm doing, is kind of a freelance musician for organizations and individuals, and I get hired to go make them sound good. This movie was intensely depressing to me. I watched this documentary, and even though like subject wise it's a lot different from what I'm doing, a lot of it was LA guys and different kind of music, and it's not exactly the same, but the structure of how the business works and how the people tend to do business and treat each other, and the stories that I heard in that documentary really hit home, and it was intensely depressing. And I said, man, I think I made the worst career decision that could be made. And it's unfortunate because that's something that I knew from 2 years old that I was going to do. And right there, it illuminated something, in my current situation and in my past. And I had to come to a conclusion And this is something that's been welling up inside me for a decade, thinking about the music business and how people do things. That's one benefit of being kind of on the sidelines a lot of the times. Like, I'm not the main person in charge. I'm hired. I'm a subcontractor. I'm a freelance person. But what I get to do is watch how people conduct their organization and watch how they're doing things and the decisions they make and how they think it's going to work. And it allows me to keep a critical eye and say, you know what, that isn't the best way to do it. That isn't going to work. And so I've assembled a lot of ideas that are kind of, to me, I haven't seen other people do them, and they're kind of revolutionary, and I'm trying to implement them now. But my point is, what I did last night is, first I got really depressed and like, man, I should just quit. This is the dumbest career choice ever. I'm just going to quit. You know, I need money, I need security. This is dumb. Why am I doing this? And then I thought, it's not music itself. It's not being trying to do music as a profession in itself. It's the way people are doing it, and it's the conditioning we've assembled. Because think about it. You know, we're looking at the result of, you know, the 20th century, the advent of the phonograph, Edison, radio, and the record industry, and how that worked, and the fact that you have to distribute these physical copies, and then MTV, and then the internet, and it's a big jumbled, no one knows what the model is now, but many people are still trying to operate with this old model of, you make a record and you tour and things like this. And I have seen for quite a while that is so outmoded and outdated. So instead of just getting depressed and quitting, I realized that no, you just have to do it in a different way. And I decided in my mind to just drop all my conditioning, all that I've been through personally, and all the different bands I played with, and seeing how they try to do things, and all the people I know that have been successful using primarily the old modality, the old way of doing things, to let it go and realize that I'm going to do it my way. I see a way that I want to do it, and I'm just gonna do it. And I haven't seen anyone else do it that way, but I don't care. I'm just gonna do it, and that was incredibly freeing. It disentangled me from all the built-up knowledge of society about the music biz and touring and making records and stuff like that. Just to let that go, and it repersonalized this thing that I love, you know, that is my practice, that is I need to do to stay centered and feel spiritually connected and process emotions and express myself. It's a very personal thing that I love, and it's always been tough to mix that up professionally and try to survive with it and depend on money. That immediately makes you have to make all kinds of compromises that are very can be very damaging to that thing you love. Like they say, do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. But there's also the danger of that trying to survive with that will kill the thing you love. It'll make you hate what you formerly loved. And I've definitely been through phases like that where I just hated the thing that was most important to me, that was most sacred to me. And you see this in all kinds of industries, people taking the thing they love and cherish, something sacred, something so special, and they exchange it for money, and it debases it, you know. But this is off subject. This is something I'll talk about later. But the point is that I had been operating with all this conditioning that I've learned my whole life about how the music business works. This is what you do. This is the goal. You try to do this. You try to meet this person. You try to get this contract and go on tour. And this is how the money is made, this is how it flows, these are the rules. And I realized that all of it is outmoded, and it really has nothing to do with what music is to me and what I want to do with it and what I try to do. And I decided just to realize that conditioning is irrelevant now. It's outmoded conditioning. And instead of like thinking that I have to exist in that world and keep using it, which would just be depressing, to just let it go. So that's the point, is like examine yourself and examine where things like that lie within yourself, where certain, whether it's your beliefs about your career or your beliefs about society or how the world works. It can even be on a spiritual level. You know, the laws of physics and mechanisms. There's still stuff yet undiscovered. Search and try to find outmoded conditioning in yourself. Not just that, but your behavioral patterns, your thought patterns. Look at where there's stuff, distinct entities, modes you get in, or specific thought patterns you get in. Try to see where that isn't serving you and make a conscious decision to reverse that card. Meaning, start to de-emphasize that in your daily life, in your thinking. When you notice it, switch it right there. Switch it to what you would prefer. Switch it to a type of thinking and energy that would suit you more. One more example. This is a kind of getting a long video, but like when I'm talking about how astrology and tarot is very helpful in separating aspects of your psychology and yourself and your personality, because that's important to realize. Don't clump it all into one entity where it's kind of like non-faceted. You're a multifaceted being. You have different sides to yourself. Recognize that. Try to identify what those are in the most general sense. And this is something astrology will teach you, because everyone has a Mars placement, everyone has a Venus placement, everyone has a Sun placement, but they also have a Moon placement. So in every human being, whether your gender is masculine or feminine, you have masculine and feminine elements. And this again is a video I'm going to make soon talking about duality in general, how it's a fundamental principle of the universe. But sometimes in life, it behooves you to emphasize the feminine part of yourself, whether you're a man or female. What this would be being more passive, being more receptive, not initiating, taking action, or imposing your will onto the external world, but taking time to be receptive to what's going on, what's coming in. What am I feeling right now? What are the vibes I'm getting? Being receptive to other people's ideas, other people's situations and feelings, and receptive to the world. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. That's how you respond sensitively to your environment. But there's other times when you need to emphasize the masculine aspect of yourself. And this is both for men and women especially. There's times where you need to embody the Emperor card, Aries, and assert your will into the external world. Put it out there. Initiate. Not just initiate, but complete and finish what you initiate. And assert your will. So this is all something that happens in the flux of time, is realizing when it's appropriate to de-emphasize aspects of yourself and emphasize others. And at a later time, the reverse might be true. You may need to de-emphasize certain other aspects and emphasize certain aspects of I mean, I think a lot of people are operating with the unconscious conditioning that it's good to be consistent and you're just this one person and you have this one personality and that it's going to fit in all situations. But if you think about it, that's a very debilitating strategy. You need to be flexible, adaptable. That's what this world is about. Adapting with change, dealing with change. And it's helpful to realize that if you are more like water, like Bruce Lee says, you're multifaceted. You're jointed. You have different aspects that you can articulate and change and de-emphasize. You're not just this one lump moving through time. Sometimes you need to, go out there and get it, and sometimes you need to hold back and see what's going on and be receptive to what's coming in and new ideas and things like this. So you want to be flexible. Think about that. Examine yourself and your behavior patterns and your cognitive patterns. See if you can separate the different aspects of yourself. There's many aspects that people can't see about themselves. This is something I've realized later, and I realized it through relationship, is that there were certain aspects of my partner, my girlfriend, that would make me incredibly frustrated, incredibly angry, and it was only bumping up against those again and again that all of a sudden I see in myself that's exactly what I do. The same stuff I'm getting mad about her for is exactly the stuff I do, but I just repressed it. I didn't look at it. I put it in my shadow self. This is a deep practice to examine all aspects of yourself, especially the aspects you don't want to look at, the stuff you don't want to admit that you do. When you get in fights or you get in a bad mood, you tend to behave in certain ways, and many people conveniently forget those ways that they behaved in. They conveniently forget the things that they said. It's important to be aware of all aspects of yourself, because then you can turn the volume up on one and turn the volume down on another. And that's what this video is about. I hoped it helped you. Remember, astrology and tarot is a great practice, even if you don't believe that there's actually something happening non-physically or a mechanism behind it. It's a great way to think about your own psychology and to think about the world. We're talking about symbols. That's all it is. It's symbols. So try this practice. It can be enormously helpful in changing and achieving what you want to achieve, and I hope it helped you. See you next time.